For over a week, Hong Kong has been marred with massive protests. Over 1 million people have taken to the streets day after day since June 9 in a mass demonstration not seen in decades. Hong Kong is protesting an extradition bill which would allow anyone living or transiting through the region to be sent to mainland China if the Chinese government was to summon them to face trial. Now, extradition treaties are normal. Tons of countries like Australia have them with one another. These treaties are basically set up when two countries share a similar legal system and ethical values. But here's the problem. Mainland China's judicial system is very different to Hong Kong's. Human rights groups have repeatedly cited the alleged use of torture, arbitrary detentions, forced confessions, and problems accessing lawyers in mainland China, so there are fears Hong Kong residents could face unfair trials. Now, the woman behind the push is a woman named Carrie Lam, Hong Kong's chief executive, who, by the way, was handpicked by the Chinese government to run the region. To stop the protest, she announced a temporary suspension of the bill, meaning, for the time being, it won't go through. But if anything, the protests have only gotten stronger since then. Now the thing is, the protests go deeper than the extradition law. It's about who the Hong Kong people are. Hong Kong was a British colony for 156 years, but in 1997 it was handed back to China. But the countries made an agreement that for 50 years, so until 2047, Hong Kong could still enjoy its unique freedoms under a one-party, two-systems rule. Hong Kong sees this law as a symbol of the Chinese government forcing its way in early, and they're both terrified and resistant. This protest wasn't just about stopping the bill. It's Hong Kong's way of kind of saying to China, you know, we don't want your rules, we don't want your governance. We want to keep our freedoms and our civil liberties. We want to be able to protest. We want to be able to light a vigil for Tiananmen Square every year. So how did China respond to that? Well, they're pissed, and also in denial. A Chinese state media report came out accusing foreign powers of interfering in Hong Kong in an attempt to hurt China. Later, another report claimed that 800,000 Hong Kongers had rallied to support the extradition law passing, which was blatantly false. Now, you might be thinking, this is all great, but why should I, as an Australian, care about something that's happening 7,000 kilometres away? Well, consider this. There's around 100,000 Australians living in Hong Kong at the moment. Hundreds of thousands more of us go as tourists every year. Any of us, even just those transiting through, could technically be summoned into China and prosecuted if this law passes. Meanwhile, the Australian government has been weirdly silent on the issue. While the UK, US, Canada and European Union publicly defended the protesters, DFAT issued a very short statement simply saying they've raised the issue with the Hong Kong government. It prompted a backlash from Hong Kong politicians, international human rights lawyers, media commentators and even Hong Kong residents in Australia, all of whom were urging Canberra to join their allies and put pressure on the government. The Hong Kong people are now urging Carrie Lam to step down.
Carrie Lam's a liar! Carrie Lam's a liar!
But according to a recent Reuters report, Beijing won't allow her to do so even if she wants to, which means as the days go on, Hong Kong's future looks more and more grim.